I just asked Aaron if he's ready to record, and he usually says yep, and we just kind of silently wait for my awesome intro. But I just asked him, and then there's just silence because I'm looking at my notes, and what's becoming a regular basis on this podcast is I have no intro. I had some things written down, but I feel like they're less intro-y, and they're more like just regular ETC stuff. Like the intro is kind of like a place where I get to break free of whatever the heck it is that we do and just talk about really random like I was thinking about this, even though it has nothing to do with anything. Although I have to pat myself on the back because I think some of the most insightful things on this podcast come in that intro. I don't know about you, but that's just my feeling.
Most original for sure, right? Because it's not just repeating, what's out there in the news. It's original content.
Exactly. Yeah. Valuable, questionable, but original. Even that's a little bit questionable, but original enough. Welcome, everybody, to the ETC Podcast, your one-stop pod for entertainment, technology, and cars, and all things random. My name is Casey Lee, and sitting across the city from me, as always, is...
Aaron Sedenkar.
It is Thursday, April 22nd, 2021, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the season finale of Season 7 of the ETC Podcast, episode 66. This episode is going to leave you wanting more, not because it's so good, but because we have just nothing to talk about. So.
Yeah, based off that intro, perfect timing to, I think.
Yeah, just cut it loose. But you know what?
Yeah.
You know what I hate constantly reminiscing about old episodes because it really is a sign that we have nothing new to talk about. But I do have to say, like ever since we announced the season finale, and ever since we did the grand Big E episode, I feel like we've gotten into some cool, long, unfiltered Casey Lee, Aaron Sedenkar discussions. Like at the potential cost of losing our 11 listeners, we just wanted to just talk and talk. Yeah. But it has been a good season. It is Earth Day today, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Right.
So happy Earth Day to all the Earthlings listening.
All the Earthlings, normally our audience, is full of Martians and Jupiterians. But all the Earthlings that are listening, definitely check out episode 61, the Big E episode, if you didn't check it out before. But that is not what we're here today to talk about. Today we're here to talk about lots of stuff. So let's get into the news here. So I want to start today with a rather surprising video that I watched. Actually, did you? Actually, you know what? It's actually not that surprising. Well, it's half surprising. And the other half that's kind of surprising is not really that surprising because I kind of figured like it would have worked after I thought about it for a second. But do you know who Mark Rober is? Or Mark Rober? I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Yeah,
he's got a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Quite famous YouTube channel, actually. And FDK, his biggest fame was probably the glitter bomb, right? I think that was probably his
that's right. The kind of bait like package on the porch for someone to steal.
Exactly.
Ends up being a trap.
So if you haven't seen it, like basically this guy is a former Apple engineer and NASA, I believe as well. Former NASA and Apple engineer. Started a YouTube channel a couple years ago, maybe longer than that. And very much in the engineering realm and tech and learning and all this stuff. Great guy, great material. Like really high views. Everything from like the glitter bomb that we just talked about to kind of thwart porch pirates. To the squirrel video where he built an obstacle course for squirrels.
That was a good one.
All the way to one of his first ones where he built a dartboard that you couldn't miss. So you'd throw a dart in the air and all these cameras and everything would calculate where the dartboard needs to be and then move the dartboard so that every time you hit a bullseye. So lots of really cool engineering products and projects that he thinks. So anyways, have you heard about his latest project?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so a video came out, I believe a week ago, and it was about his son actually. So what's kind of interesting is, like any smart YouTuber, he's been not very public about his personal like family life. Now, what's interesting is he actually shows a lot of footage and stuff that he does with his nieces and nephews. He does a lot. He does like when he does his like crazy things that he does, he'll kind of involve his nieces and nephews. So without even really thinking about it too much, I actually didn't think he had a son. I thought he was just like kind of this younger guy who, had nieces and nephews. But it turns out he has a son, and a son that's actually quite old. Actually, he's pretty old. But so one of the fears I think that he had in talking about his son is, one, it's the internet, and two, his son is autistic. The combination of internet and how vicious the internet can be, and autism and misunderstanding of autism can be, it's really crazy. Yeah, definitely. Right? So Mark Rober, or again, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he released a video talking about his son and autism, and kind of it actually really opened my eyes to autism, because I to this day don't really understand it. But after watching this video, he did a pretty good explanation and opened my eyes to what autism is, which is kind of interesting. Anyways. Yeah. Really great video, great to watch. Was trending #1 on YouTube, millions of views, and I kind of watched it halfway through and I was like, okay, this is interesting. Mark Rober is one of these guys who, as nice as he is and as great as he is, there's a little bit part of me that I don't like 100% like, oh, I gotta watch all his videos to the end or whatever. So I kind of watched it, and then I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I should kind of watch it more to learn more about autism. And then, so the video ends. And then halfway through, he's like, okay, that's great, but here's this other thing I'm going to do. And then he starts talking to the camera, and he's reading out, and he's like, oh, I'm putting on this little thing. And then it cuts to another camera shot, and there's a guy in the back holding cue cards. And he's like, oh, you know what? It feels not so genuine as I'm reading these cards. And he's like, and the guy behind the camera is just like, just read the cards. And it turns out the guy who was reading the cards is actually Jimmy Kimmel.
Whoa.
So Jimmy Kimmel comes out, and they both sit down on the couch. And so part of me was like, this is crazy, Jimmy Kimmel. But I remember Jimmy Kimmel's actually had Mark Rober on his show a lot of the time, actually. So, okay. But anyways, the two of them have combined to put together this massive online fundraiser for autism.
Awesome.
And it's what's cool. What's cool is that it's all it's such a split of celebrities, because Mark Rober is bringing in all the YouTube celebrities. So there's like Casey Neistat, MKBHD, Mr. Beast, like you've mentioned Mr. Beast in the past. Like all these YouTubers are coming. And then Jimmy Kimmel is bringing kind of all traditional media, like Conan O'Brien, Jack Black, all these big celebrities. And so, anyways, so April 30th, they're putting on this big virtual night of fundraising for autism. And I just thought it was a really cool blending of kind of, new age YouTuber kind of celebrity, and then combined with, again, like I love when those worlds collide, right, and cross, because I feel like unfortunately YouTube can develop because you can become really YouTube famous without really leaving your house, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
so it's kind of interesting when there actually is that kind of collide, right? Whereas like I feel like traditional media is very opposite. Like you really have to be out there with everybody, right? So I can't remember the name of the fundraising group itself. It's something like it has the word Spectrum in it, and I can't. It's like Next. I can't remember what it is exactly. But anyways, really
check out
cool.
The notes, show notes.
Check out the notes. check out the Mark Rober video. It's an awesome video, and again, we are in time because it is before April 30th. So check out that fundraiser.
Very timely.
April 30th, Mark Rober.
Awesome.
MCU.
Yes,
we talk about the MCU a lot,
or as our friend Dave, I think, put it. MSU or M? I think he's
either he can't speak and spell in English words, or he doesn't know what those letters stand for. So it's finally come, right? It's Asian time.
It's what?
it's Asian time in the MCU.
I know what you're yes. Yeah.
So the trailer dropped for Shang-Chi, or I don't know how to pronounce it. Shang-Chi. So the guy from Kim's Convenience is in it. And
he's been in other things as well, but
has he?
I mean, at least as a Canadian, he's pretty well known for that. But
Okay.
He's been in one or two movies, and every time I have seen him, I'm like, hey, it's the guy from Kim's Convenience, which probably is not giving him enough like credit, but yeah.
Yeah. Like we're not even giving him a name. Like, do you know his name? I don't even know his name.
Simu, right? Is that how you say it?
I have no idea. I've never known this guy's name. I've never watched Kim's Convenience. I barely knew this guy before Shang-Chi. Like, I didn't like
Simu. I think that's it. Okay. I'm trying to see what other movies he's been in, but yeah, he's definitely been in other things.
He's only been in
Pacific Rim. He was in a very brief like cameo, or not cameo, but like, you know, as an extra in the original Pacific Rim. And he's been in a few other TV shows as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, just as an extra, and he was in the, like, I think one episode of The Expanse, which is a sci-fi show, which I really like. It's on Amazon right now, but I think originally it was on like the network Sci-Fi, I think.
Yeah,
I think. So he's been in a few TV shows. I'm trying to see what else here. He's Taken. There's a TV show. I don't know. That's based off the movie.
It was.
Taken.
Yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah,
he was probably also in like Kim's Convenience, the movie, or something like that.
Was there a movie? Was there actually a movie?
No, I'm joking. The only things he's in is Kim's Convenience.
Yeah,
you know, it's interesting because like I looked at some of the credits of this thing before the trailer came out, and I believe it's an Asian director and a pretty like large Asian cast. You know, which is great, you know, obviously. You know, so it's interesting. I mean, it's you know, I don't know like how you feel about this, like, as, you know, an Asian. Like, I don't know, I've never been, you know, like race is an interesting thing, I feel like, when you're Asian, especially if you're like kind of grew up in North America. But you know, it's not like, it's kind of cool. Like, I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool. And I remember like there was this movie a long time ago called like Better Luck Tomorrow, and it was like a bunch of like Asian Americans, and it was a relatively big movie, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm excited because it's a new MCU movie. The Asian aspect is, you know, I feel like, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, how do you have any thoughts on this? The fact that it's Asian and you're Asian?
I mean, I think there's a pretty, like, again, I think a lot of this is based, you know, you'll hear opinions that are obviously heavily influenced by whatever your personal experiences has been, right? Because I know some people feel really strongly because, you know, if you've been personally a victim of discrimination, right? Like, this is a pretty big deal. And I know that there's, especially in the entertainment industry, right? I think acutely, you know, Asians in the entertainment industry, probably this is a huge win for them because a lot of them probably felt a lot of, you know, discrimination. I know that there was a lot of stuff that came out around, you know, you just not getting roles, right, or casted, right? And if you did, it was kind of the stereotype, right? Like, you got cast. Like, there's very few movies where, you know, there's an Asian that wasn't specifically casted because they're Asian, right? And so I think this is, comes down to personal history. Like, I mean, you know, I've been fortunate enough to, you know, I think in North America, in your lifetime, if you're a minority, you're going to face some form of discrimination, right?
Yeah.
But I would say that, you know, especially listening to stories of a lot of other people, like, I've been fairly lucky, like, you know, obviously have experienced discrimination, but not to the extent where, you know, it's maybe held me back, right, from life or career. So I've been pretty lucky that way, but yeah, I could definitely see how this is a big win for people that have, right, and seeing that this is now,
Well, and I think, you know, there's maybe a subtle like aspect to it that we didn't necessarily experience, but we like because me and Brendan talk about this a lot, where like, you know, it's about normalizing it, right? So it's like, even though we feel like maybe it hasn't held us back in any way, you know, the more stuff like this happens, you know, the more, you know, Asian directors and Asian, you know, actors and all this stuff like that happens, you know, it becomes normalized that there are a lot of Asian actors and you know, so like, I feel like, you know, it's I've never really thought it would hold me back, but like, you know, there are probably some, you know, reasons why I'm in an industry that is very typically, you know, that Asians pursue, like engineering and stuff like that, right? So you know, I tried the film industry and it didn't work out, right? But like, so it's an interesting conversation, right? And like, especially with like all the stuff that's happening with like Asian, racism and stuff like that. It's like it's weird when you don't necessarily connect with it. It's not that I don't believe in it, and it's not that I don't feel for those people, but there is still a lack of connection a little bit, right? With the way I've lived my life, and not the way I've lived my life, but the way my life has gone, I guess, is a better way to put it. So, so Shang-Chi, MCU, Asian time.
I haven't seen the trailer yet, but definitely, was this character, like it's an MCU, but is it, do you know if it's connecting back to any of the previous movies or anything like that?
Not as far as I can tell, but knowing Marvel, they will, there's probably like somebody's going to show up. Like Doctor Strange has a lot of Asian kind of influence. Like there was that big, there's that big issue with Tilda Swinton being cast as that right?
Right.
But maybe that's racist to think like, oh, but just because Doctor Strange is in the Asian world and Shang-Chi is in the Asian world, that there's going to be some kind of crossover there. I don't know. I really don't know. Anyways, so that's coming out September actually. So okay. I feel like cool. The Marvel cinematic kind of train is running again. Basically, I think like I feel like the entertainment industry,
whatever phase they're in, I can't really keep track.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have any news?
I mean, at some point we should probably get into the Apple event and kind of unpack that a bit. So
let me ask you this: is that part of your regular segment that we're hinting at, or is that going to be not part of your regular segment?
I feel like you just bleed into it, so maybe we like touch on. There's a few things, so curious to get your thoughts, and then there's maybe one thing in particular I'll kind of talk about later. But
okay,
yeah.
Sorry. Then before we do that, why don't we do one last do your thing for the season?
Yeah, we have
we do, because I feel like we've been neglecting a little bit, and we kind of sneak it in, and Brody is nice enough to actually do it regular for us, and we keep kind of ignoring do your thing. And we keep telling people, hey, if you do your thing at us, we'll talk about it. And we're already dropping the ball on that.
Yeah, everyone who's not Brody, take a hint.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so why don't we just squeeze this in here? So time for our regular segment, Do Your Thing.
It's been like 3 episodes, right? Like it's been a while since
we've done it. There was one episode, like an episode 2 ago, where I just quickly said, "Hey, there it is," or whatever.
Right.
It's been a couple of episodes for sure. So okay, so from our good friend Brody, who by the way has thanked us for his supporting his film on the ETC podcast a week or so ago. But anyways, so this is what he posts. Brody, do your thing. The greatest thing about do your thing is when we actually don't know about this stuff. Well, I don't know about this thing. I don't know if you knew about this thing. So this comes from courtesy of IGN.
Okay.
And this was posted today at 7:01 a.m.
Okay, so this is a very, in the moment, do your thing.
Yes, very fresh off the presses, coming straight out of the oven here. Kind of the kind of news that you take out of the oven. It's so hot you drop it on the floor. To clean it up. It's that kind of news. Okay. I don't like when I can consciously hear myself trying to be funny. I don't like that. And I feel like I was consciously trying to be funny and it wasn't good. Okay, let's get back to the news here. Do your thing.
Yeah.
All right, IGN. Lego's massive 2,314. Actually, let me backtrack a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you remember how many pieces your little Astro Train set was? That Lego thing that you talked about on the holiday episode?
I have no clue.
I'm just curious to get a gauge of if 2,314 pieces is large.
That sounds like a lot. I think,
big, right?
Yeah, I think like a couple hundred pieces is even a lot. So
right, okay,
yeah.
So Lego's massive 2,314 piece R2D2.
Oh, okay. I was not expecting that. Okay.
Yeah, will launch on May 1st for $199. I'm assuming US. To commemorate the 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm. Complete with a hidden lightsaber hilt compartment.
Okay, that's cool.
So this is a 1/3 scale R2D2.
I was gonna say it must be pretty sizable.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
cool.
like in the picture, I gotta admit, like I always find like scale, like when they say a 1/3 scale, one quarter, like whatever. Like I know it makes sense because it's like, you know, even like 1/4, it's like double and then double that, right? Like it starts to kind of get exponential a little bit, right? But 1/3, it just doesn't look like it's 1/3, but it's got to be. So it's 1/3 scale. It looks pretty detailed. What I'm impressed by looking at the picture here is that it does look like it wouldn't be 2000. Like it looks quite simple. So I mean, there must be a lot of pieces and parts to it.
Okay.
Like I said, a hidden lightsaber hilt compartment.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I mean, I know R2 shoots out his lightsaber to Luke.
Yeah.
But what does hilt mean?
Sorry, the hilt is, I think, is just the actual, you know, the lightsaber itself. You know, like when it's not, I don't know what you want to call it, whenever it's not in use, right? Just like the portion that you would have, you know, on your belt or something.
Right. Oh, okay. Hidden lightsaber.
I don't know why they're calling it a hilt, but yeah.
Well, it says with a hidden lightsaber hilt compartment. So it's like,
I mean, to make it clear that R2D2 is not using the lightsaber.
No. Yeah, I know that.
He's just holding on to it.
I didn't know what the word hilt meant. I didn't know.
Hilt is just literally like if you had an actual sword, like not a you know, mythical Star Wars sword, but if you have an actual sword, the bottom part that you're holding is called a hilt.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then the blade part is called the blade.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I knew the blade part was called the blade, but I would. So the handle is called the hilt.
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes perfect sense. Like that where he stores the hilt.
Yeah.
Like the handle. Right. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Cool. I feel like that's pretty. Yeah. It's very interesting that they had to go to that detail. I don't think Brody expected us to have a discussion about the word hilt.
Yeah.
When he posted this.
Yes.
You know what's funny? I keep staring at the thumbnail, and the thumbnail says Lego reveals 1/3 scale R2D2 set, and I keep seeing 1/3 as like 1 of 3. So I keep thinking like, oh, is this going to slide to the next
super rare? 1 of 3. Oh no, you mean 3 like parts?
No, it's just exactly. This is 1/3 scale. It's not literally 1 of 3 pages or something like that.
Yeah.
So. Okay, so thanks, Brody. Do your thing. I'm sure a little anticlimactic, but very cool actually that this thing.
I almost like I don't know. When was the last time you played with Lego or like I don't know. Did you were you into Lego as a kid? Did you have any?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I you know ever like going to kindergarten. My earliest memory of Lego was going to in kindergarten. So do you remember? So you know how Lego they had those wheels, right? There was one that was like a very flat piece with four dots, 4 units. I'm gonna call them Lego units, LUs.
Right.
So four LUs, and then they had basically like very small tires, and they kind of had either a white wall or a red wall. And then there were ones that kind of had more like round, circular, almost like Mars rover type wheels. And so, anyways. Me and my colleagues, I don't know if we were friends at that point, kindergarten, who knows. We would always not fight over, but always race to get the ones with the little wheels. So all the way from back then to I really got into the Ice Planet series at one point.
Okay, yeah.
And then that was probably it. Like early as a kid, I remember once you figured out how to join one LU onto the top of another LU and you can make them flex. Like that was really cool. But yeah, big time into Lego. Like you, and I'm assuming you were with that train thing. Yeah,
I mean there's that, and then a little bit of like I think mostly other than that Technic stuff. So I liked a lot of the things that were like motorized and you know you can kind of like control and whatnot. So, but no, I mean it's like I feel I don't know like I feel like when we were kids. Lego for adults or as something that adults were into. I don't recall that being much of a thing, but I feel like it is now. Like I have a lot of coworkers and I know, completely grown adults that are like super into Lego now. And it's more on the, they have these Legos that are more kind of like you can put on display or they're kind of models, right? Like there's a bunch of like architectural ones, like the Eiffel Tower and
totally. Like
there's a bunch of NASA.
Kinda,
Yeah, so I feel like I don't know if that is a more recent thing or yeah.
Well, did you also catch that like at I don't know, I don't think it exists anymore, but like for a brief like maybe one season, what's his name was the host, Lego Batman, Will Arnett.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And there was like a reality series about Lego builders and like
Oh, cool.
adults like building kind of complex like Lego things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's a new phenomenon or not, or more it's just more public now, maybe more accepted. Maybe
Yeah, it's
back
true.
when we were
Yeah.
kids, adults playing with Lego was like who are
It was-
you?
it
You're
was-
such a nerd.
It was happening, but they didn't reveal it or they didn't talk about it. But
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So maybe R2D2 is the thing that gets me back into it.
You know, it's interesting because I mean, I feel like you've been talking about this like for a little while, but kind of getting back into Lego and like, I could see it. Yeah, I could see like I kind of like the idea of like building this stuff, but also like I feel like you mentioned that Technic stuff. I like because I never got into the Technic stuff, and that's pretty cool too. Actually, I feel like building something motorized or some kind of like engineering kit or something like that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, totally.
So, I mean, there's a Lego documentary actually I started watching briefly on Netflix as well.
Okay.
And the whole Lego culture, it's like it's pretty crazy actually. Yeah, it's pretty insane. Not to mention Lego movies, very very good movies.
Yes.
Although that being said, I've only seen the first one. Have you seen the other two?
I mean, I think I've seen two. How many are there?
There's the two, and then there's Lego Batman, basically.
Lego. Okay, yeah, I think I've seen both of them. What the two?
Yeah.
I don't forget what they're called, but yeah, I mean, it's a really strong brand as far as like, again, like at the end of the day, it's just a kind of toy, right? That you gotta put together, but really strong brand, right? Like everything from, like you said, media to there's like Legolands right out there. So yeah, it's I think they're like I feel like I put them in the same category as a company like Nintendo that had like over time I think their brand is only on stronger, and you've seen a lot of classic brands kind of just die out and take missteps and go in the wrong direction. I feel like Lego's like Lego, Nintendo, they're some of the few brands that have managed to like keep the magic alive, basically.
Yeah, I feel like Lego even more so because I feel like I don't know about you, but I've watched some videos on Nintendo like in the last year or so, and apparently Nintendo there's a lot of sketchiness around them, and like their kind of secretiveness and their like avoidance of like what they do with environmental laws and all this stuff like that. There's like
I did not know. This is gonna ruin my childhood.
Yeah, I feel like there's some sketchiness.
Like Mario was just a ploy for the oil companies or something.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, maybe the same thing can be said about Lego. I mean, they do produce a lot of plastics, so who knows? So, all right, that's it. Do your thing, Lego. Tweet at us.
Thanks, Brody.
Thanks, Brody. We may. Like you can do your thing now, and who knows when we're coming back. So
yeah, exactly. Right. You missed your chance. So
yeah, where were you guys? All right, we're gonna take a short break. We'll be right back after this. Dun 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 dun. And we are back. So,
I can't tell if that's going to be actually in the episode or not.
100%. So this is my thing. I want to jazz up our back message rather than saying like, and we are back, like the exact same thing every time. Got to jazz it up, right?
Yeah.
Right as we're about to end the season, got to jazz it up. Yes. So. If you want to get in contact with us, please email us at podcast.etc@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at the ETC Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Smash that subscribe button. Do whatever you need to do. And if you want to visit our official website where you can leave a voice message, it's anchor.fm/the-etc-podcast. Now it's time for a deep dive into what Apple news is on Aaron's noggin.
Yeah, exactly. If it's not some subject, it's usually this. But I mean, we've been kind of lucky with a lot of Apple events, I feel, over the last few months. So so the latest Apple event, which is just on Tuesday, I don't know, did you get a chance to check this out?
Yeah. I was very happy, first of all, that I was disciplined enough not to watch it during work. I was like, I want to focus on work.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to say, like, I'm going to sit down and watch the whole thing. Yeah. I took over the TV and
and I mean, they've made that much easier, right? Like,
totally.
It's really interesting, right? I think I swear, like, the events used to be longer, right? So I don't know for sure. I have to go back to see how long these events used to be. But Apple, they're basically kind of perfecting this, like, they're keeping it like basically exactly an hour, right? Yep. And, you know, I think before, you know, the events were good, but yeah, like there was a lot of events where, like, if I didn't catch it live, it wasn't good. Like, it wasn't quite good enough for me to necessarily watch the whole thing after the fact, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now, like, they're so highly produced that it's actually, you know, it's enjoyable to watch it, you know, whenever, right? And they're kind of intending it to be consumed, you know, as almost a TV show, right? Like, you're just watching an hour of Apple. But yeah, this is, I think, the third or fourth event I think that they've done since the pandemic started.
Has there been that many already?
I want to say there's at least two or three, because there was a first, I think WWDC, right, was that one,
and that was in this kind of, it was in like the circle and the whole crazy
exactly. And then there was definitely one in November.
The M1 announcement.
Yeah, so I think at least three. But anyways, they're getting really good at this, right? Like, it's crazy, the production values, and like I'm still blown away by how they're still showing new parts of the Apple campus. Right, like they're getting a lot of mileage out of that campus, and again, it's gorgeous, right? It's so good.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So I found it a little bit funny, the whole Tim Cook walking bit, like how he's like, you know, walking and talking and that whole bit. But you know, I have to say, like when the first like one or two keynotes came out, and you were like, oh, the production value is so crazy. I was like, you know, it's professional, but I don't think really much better than, you know, your average professional, like kind of almost like documentary or whatever. This is the first time where they did things where I was like, yeah, of course they did something like not of course, more like as if they would do that, because that is Apple, right? Yeah. I'll tell you the one that really caught my attention, and it's not the Tim Cook thing. Yeah. Like, it was literally the first time they like went into the grass.
Yeah, I know.
And there's like that bee flying. I'm like, what? Like, so unnecessary and so not related to what's like anything that's going on. But I was like, yeah, okay, well, they have all the money in the world. Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
That, right? So yeah. Anyways,
and the whole like the fact that the whole campus is like clearly there are probably not a lot of people working there right now, but it's still like beautifully maintained and like perfect, right? Everything like so.
Well, how sweet was it? Do you think for that woman that presented the Apple TV? Yeah, like that's like, I guess their smart home set or whatever.
Yeah,
like that place is amazing, right?
Well, that's the thing. Even I guess they must be sets, right? Like the sets are like basically now like you look at it, it's like, oh my God, it's like they would never do that at previous events, right? Like they would just come out on stage or something or maybe make a video. But some of these sets are just like, I want to live there. Like it's
totally.
Well, all right. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I mean, how deep dive are you gonna go? Because there's other things about the keynote that I'm like, oh yeah, that is.
No, I mean, while we're on it, yeah. What?
Okay, so I was blown away. Not blown away, but I was definitely like, wow, yeah, okay, you got it. Again, whoever their advertising firm is or whatever. Yeah. So the AirTags commercial.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, this is so typical product commercial. He's looking for his keys. Yeah. He's gonna look at his phone and boom, he's gonna find his thing. And then when he went into the couch, I'm like, yo, that is such a brilliant take on it. I was like so blown away by that. Yeah.
Do you think it's a, like, again, they're such a big company. I'm sure they do work to some extent with external studios. But I do wonder at this point how much of that is in-house versus, external.
Well, I was surprised to know that at least definitely before the pandemic, like pretty recently, I know that well, not for sure, but I'm pretty sure that they were still working with external advertising agencies and stuff like that. I think they were still hiring people to do their commercials and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But maybe with the pandemic, I mean Apple's bringing everything in house, right? So maybe they're advertising too. So who knows?
It's just so creative. It's
yeah.
So it was an interesting event. I don't know. Obviously there's a bunch of things announced, a bunch of products announced. It was interesting because again, I like the fact that they are not afraid to just kind of start on a random direction, right? The opening, obviously, they've the last few events really kind of called out sustainability and what they're doing in the environment. So did that again, especially with it being Earth Month, Earth Day. But then started with Apple Card, which was kind of I wasn't expecting that, and I almost forgot because again we're in the third world country of Canada where we don't we don't get certain things. But that is again, it's one of those products that I don't know about you, but I would definitely use it. I would definitely be on board with
I was excited when they talked about it.
I almost forgot that it existed until Tim Cook announced there's even more things coming, which really want. But
well, it's so funny because the feature that he announced, I was like, hey, I've been in that situation because for a really long time I was a secondary cardholder of my dad's credit card account.
Yeah.
So all this thing about building credit, and I was like, oh, that's actually kind of useful.
And that's again, not to, obviously we're huge Apple fans, but I think there's something to be said with no other company I feel is thinks like that, right? Where it's again, if you're a financial company making a credit card, you're obviously not going to care about your customers' credit scores and stuff. You're not in that business, right? But even if other companies that weren't credit card companies or banks did credit cards, I feel again, I can't think of any other company that would have that insight to be no, everyone who's using this should benefit, right? And again, it seems like such a simple concept to be why doesn't everyone just if your name is on the card, treat it as if, that's you and not whoever the primary card holder is, right? So, just a really smart way of thinking about it. Yeah, and then something kind of relevant maybe for us, a bunch of changes to podcasting. I don't know if you... I was trying to understand this because I was like, okay, well, it seemed like a UI update, but there's something about subscriptions and I don't quite...
Yeah.
I think mostly because we are not... we're nowhere close to making any money of this, but it seems like a pretty big change, right? I know Spotify has been doing some of this stuff already because they're a paid service, but I wonder if this is gonna mean paid podcasts, I guess, on Apple.
Well, us being at the level that we're at, they emailed us right away after the announcement. No, but we actually did get an email from. I'm sure it's a mass email to every single podcast creator. But we did get an email about it and being able to offer exclusive content and all this stuff through subscriptions. There was rumors that they were going to shut down Podcast Connect, which is where you kind of manage your podcast through Apple's stuff.
Okay.
I don't even know if we officially have ours. I can't remember. Right. But so I don't really. I think to the extent is, I think they're probably trying to. Well, what's funny is because Anchor's been trying to do that for a while. Who's now been acquired by Spotify, right?
Yeah.
When Anchor launched, they always talked about being the YouTube of podcasts, where it's you don't pay, the creators don't pay, but there may be ads and sponsorship things and stuff like that, right? So I wonder if Apple is just trying to create more of a business model around podcasts, offering whatever. Because I think Stitcher does that. Stitcher has subscriptions
Okay.
I think Stitcher you pay maybe per month and then you get access to exclusive content or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, there's a few companies that do it, right? In Gimlet Media, I think has some sort of or had some sort of paid thing where you get some content for free. But so maybe next season look out for our premium content.
You get more Casey doing jingles
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Entire
Just an hour of jingles. I'll skip over the purple news. Like that's it's I was very come on, like what is this, right? But like then I kind of realized like, hey, I wonder if this is gonna be a trend. Like, are they gonna release new colors every, I don't know, like I don't know what you call this, but I guess this is kind of in the middle of the cycle, right? Like in the middle of the update cycle.
I mean, they've done that before, so I feel like that wasn't that surprising.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, I feel, they've done like, we've introduced. Well, I mean, I guess my product red stuff, like, exactly. They definitely have introduced like a color, randomly, so
but I guess the bigger stuff that I guess we'll kind of get to now. So they're finally updating the Apple TV, which is. I can't believe that. I think the last one was 2017 or something, which just sounds like unbelievable. Not a huge update. I mean, I think like if you're, it's kind of like it's an update for the nerds out there, really. Like all the stuff they talked about for the hardware itself is just like it's like super nerdy. Like you and I would probably be like, cool, yeah, let's get this stuff, but very nerdy.
Though. Like I know. I was like. Because Apple TV is one of these things that I feel like I want to hold on to like as long as I can because I feel like I can't, like, again, I still have a really old TV itself, right? And so I'm very happy at how mediocre the new 4K Apple TV 4K like it's such a mediocre update, I find.
Yeah, and again, like especially in your case, if you're not even getting the 4K benefit, there's not a huge jump, right? But the things that maybe are more significant, like don't even have to do, like you don't even need the latest Apple TV, which is there's a new remote which actually looks quite a bit like more usable, right? Like in terms of the buttons and kind of interface. But apparently that works with any Apple TV. And so you can just get it, you can just buy it, right? For any Apple TV. And they have this cool thing where you can, with your iPhone, calibrate your TV, which is cool. I think that
was kind of cool. Yeah, that was
because I think that'll actually improve. Again, Apple is in the business of how do you make something very accessible, right? Because that type of stuff is very like you and I, and like I know, certain people with close relationships to us will complain about this sometimes, but you and I are not afraid to dive in and like change settings and things like that, right? But no one else does, right? And so I think it's a cool little way Apple's doing with their phone to adjust your color and brightness settings on your TV.
And it'll be like, because again, like ecosystem, right? It'll be so easy. If you have an iPhone, right, to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. But the bigger stuff. So let's get into, I mean, we touched on the Find My updates and Find My network. They finally, revealed what they've been doing with AirTags. Again, just like you mentioned the couch thing. So if you haven't watched it, AirTags are basically this little, like, it looks like a little coin. Again, really nicely designed. Apple has put a lot of thought into like the physical design. You can get like engravings on it and stuff like that. But the neat little video they showed was, let's say you lost I think it was his keys, right? You lost your keys in the house somewhere. It's in the couch, right? So the video starts with him like trying to get to work, whatever, needs to find the keys. And it's like, oh, cool. It's making a noise because these tags will make a noise if you're trying to find it. But not only that, like the one really cool tech thing here that's enabled by a new kind of chipset in their phones now is, these are very directionally accurate. And so it's not just, the thing will make a noise. On your phone, you'll actually see, and I think it's within a few centimeters accuracy, how far away it is. And there's a cool little like compass thing that directs you to it. So again, really like the implementation, I didn't use Tile a lot. And I think you have, right? Like you've used Tile, but this implementation.
I didn't use it a lot, but I have experience with Tile. Well, there's a big like antitrust discussion now, like Tile is raising with the AirTag. So
and I don't blame them, but so the user experience here I think is far above anything I saw from Tile, but I think that has a lot to do with this new technology, right? That Apple has introduced. But then, he starts digging into the couch, and then it turns into this, like what you were talking about, this ridiculous sequence of like, he's like falls into the couch into this, I don't know, couch cave or whatever.
That's the
really
couch
cool.
cave.
Yeah.
That's the key where it's like like the walls of the cave are actually fabric, which is like it was so cool. It's like so
really
smart.
really well done. But no, it's just like again really well thought out. I feel like this like AirTags is an example of criticize Apple all you want, but it basically perfectly plays into their strengths, right? Like I talked a bit about the user experience and design of this, but again, like they could have probably have done this, years ago, right? But they've done it in a way that they've waited until, technology was, ubiquitous enough. They just have like so many iPhones out there. And I think this is like such a perfect time for them to launch because yes, you're mentioning kind of the potential data tracking or privacy concerns, right? But I actually think that Apple is in the best position now to do that, right? Because if you're going to trust anyone with this sort of thing, right? Like you're not going to trust like Facebook. If Facebook launched something similar, you're not like people are losing trust with that. I would even say Google to some extent, right? Like I think a lot of people wouldn't trust to the same extent, but I feel Apple can get away with. So a key part of how this works is anyone with an iPhone potentially. I don't know how the opt-in works. Like I don't know if there's a way to opt in or out. But let's say you put an AirTag in something you don't want to lose, right? Or kind of if it gets stolen, you would care about, right? So I don't know, like some examples were bikes and stuff like that, or things like that. Let's say you lose it, you can say I've lost it or it's been stolen, and then any iPhone within range of whatever your AirTag basically can determine its location, which is kind of crazy, right? Like that's insane. Again, they're not the first ones to do this, but I suspect like Apple from day one probably has 100 times the users as Tile, right? Like
that's exactly it. So, because Tile did have something similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I'm very curious. Actually, I didn't even realize like the other phones have to opt in. Is that true? Or is it just
that is what I'm not sure about. But I suspect that I'd be very surprised if all of a sudden every iPhone could do this. Like I think there's something in Find My where like if you're using it, then other people like can also leverage that. But they said 1 billion devices potentially that can which is crazy.
And I do think, I mean, again, it's like that whole medical study thing we talked about where it's like Apple's able to pull off really crazy medical studies because just the volume of iPhones that are out there, right?
Yeah.
Very like I it's funny because I'm literally halfway through the Verge's review of it, and I'm at the point where they tried this thing where one of their guys went out without an iPhone or anything. But okay, this is the weird part though, because they said they were just going to go out there and put these AirTags somewhere, and hopefully somebody's phone would pick it up or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe it is not opt-in. I don't know, because like their whole thing is that it's like encrypted end to end. So what I can imagine is that data ends up in a central place, but only your phone can access that central data.
And it's not it's not tied to any personal information, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if that's the case, again, if they've done it in a way that doesn't require a lot of opt-in, then that's such a huge win, right? It's just like that's such a powerful network, and so I'm pretty impressed. Like I will say though, and maybe this is just because I haven't left the house really in the last year, right? Go anywhere. I am struggling a bit with what do I put it in, and use cases for me personally. I don't know about you. Like the most I can think of, this is kind of funny, is putting it in my vehicle. Right? Because it's like, I know newer cars, but especially like I have a really old, like 1970s vehicle that has no, tracking or anything. Maybe a neat use case, right? And from a security perspective, if it ever gets stolen, you can kind of track it. But other than that, I don't know. Like, I don't even use keys anymore. Like, I don't know about you. Like, I don't really use keys. So,
it's funny. So for me, like when I was thinking about Tile, right? Like, I was more living vicariously through others. Like I know people, like who lost their keys regularly, and that's who I give it to. And the only thing I could think of was occasionally I've lost a jacket or two in my life, and so just putting it in my jacket would be really.
You almost want to like sew it into like certain clothes and like your backpacks and stuff like that.
Totally. The thing that didn't, I shouldn't say it surprised me because it's Apple. But it's a little curious did you look at the pricing of the AirTags and like the AirTag keychain?
So I know like the AirTags themselves, yes. I think it, $30 or something like Canadian, and then you get a 4-pack for like 100 something. I'm not aware. I didn't look at the keychains though. Like I know that there's a Hermes version,
Hermes, yeah,
which is
not that one, not that one.
Yeah,
but yeah. So the AirTag in Canada, I believe, is $39.
Yeah,
and the cheapest Apple keychain holder for it is $45. Like that's a pretty expensive tag at that point, right? So the good thing is third parties are already releasing their holders.
I was gonna say,
Belkin has one for like $15.
Yeah,
but like the leather Apple AirTag holder is $45 plus that's like a $70-some like,
and it's more than the AirTag itself. Like,
yeah, that's like like that's crazy. But again, it's Apple, so you're like, oh yeah, that's.
That almost makes the AirTag itself seem like a good deal, right? Like, yeah,
that's why they did it.
So yeah, I almost want to buy one or two just to play around with it, right? It's kind of neat. Like, I feel like you get like, I don't know if they're going to open up, to apps and stuff, but I feel like you could make some pretty cool games and stuff with it too, right? Like, I feel there's a lot of interesting possibilities here. So I think
sorry, did you hear that? Also, they're because like you could customize them, right, with like your like
that's right,
emojis or letters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Did you see they've also had this whole fiasco around trying to ban like lewd like stuff on it? Like you can't put a horse emoji with a poop emoji behind it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, have you you can get any of their engraved stuff. You can put emojis on now, right? So I don't know if you played around with it, but it's this weird subset of emojis, right? Like they didn't allow you to do anything, right? So I can only imagine a team at Apple, right? Like, and probably a pretty big team of really highly paid people. Just basically all they're doing is determining what is the like valid set of emojis, right?
Totally.
Cool. So that's AirTags. So a pretty big iPad Pro specifically update. I don't think there's a ton to say other than there's a really funny bit with Tim Apple pretending to be like basically straight from Mission Impossible, right? Like literally a scene, I think, right? It's even him taking off the
fair
enough, right? Yeah. So that was
what I will say was awesome about that is, I follow Apple rumors pretty like avidly.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear about that at all. Yeah. That the M1 was going to be placed in the iPad. Like that seemed like a really.
Do you think like they, again, because I guess they're so big at this point, like, do you think they kind of like the whole like secret agent thing was actually playing on that? The fact that like they were completely hiding it?
Oh, maybe.
Right? Because I didn't hear anything about this. It seemed like very well hidden, right? Like there's
and it was such a good way that like even before like the couple split seconds before the super agent thing, I was like when the guy said like, oh, and the M1 is not just benefiting Mac users.
Yep.
And I literally thought like, what? Like Windows users? Like that's what I was thinking at first, like for a split second.
I was like, are they getting back at the PC, the trader, Justin Long, right?
Yeah. And then it dawned on me. I was like, oh shoot, like the iPad. And that was like, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, like, genuine surprise. Like, again, hard to be surprised, right? Like these days with their product announcements, but I was kind of surprised. It didn't click for me either until literally he was putting it inside that scene, right? So, I mean, big deal, obviously. Like I think, like for a lot of reasons, obviously, like again, one being, I feel like the M1 is such a huge success for them, and this is just like the fact that so quickly they're able to put it into a device other than a Mac, like that seems pretty like a huge deal, right? And it's just, again, I don't think anyone was like, I don't know if the leap will be as noticeable because the last iPad Pro, again, was at such a high envelope performance, right? I'm not sure there's going to be that kind of difference, but I think it's sort of like, it's really cool to see them invest, right? Because the thing with the iPad Pro, especially after the last, round of iPad updates, is it seemed like it was kind of like, it's, like other than the display and a few things, right? It wasn't that far apart. The fact that they put, an M1, basically what they have in their computers into that, I feel like it's cool to see the iPad Pro get even more investment and, actually become more pro to some extent.
Yeah. You know what I found kind of weird? Like, so first of all, when they're talking about Apple Silicon and the Apple TV, it dawned on me that I completely forgot that Apple Silicon is in like iPhones and iPads and all this stuff already, right? Like, it's just always been there. It's just, I guess they never really talk about Apple Silicon that way, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And then secondly, you're totally right though about the gap in iPad Pro. Talk about sales speak. It was such a strange thing that they were comparing the performance of the newest, craziest iPad Pro to the first generation ever iPad. Like, what a weird way to launch the craziest.
But at the same time, it like that it is kind of cool because, again, I think it shows you like the time scale Apple is thinking at, right? Yeah. Like, they're not just thinking about how much better it is from last year. Like, it is cool for them to point out just how far things have come, right? Even though it's a silly number, like, again, it's hard to grasp. It's 75 times faster than the original iPad, right?
Yeah.
Which is, I don't think it's surprising, but I think, it's cool to kind of like see that, like how far it's come. But no, I mean, again, like a gorgeous device, as usual. Not a lot has changed with the design, but the display looks insane. Again, the display was already good. This seems like it's another step better.
Well, this kind of goes back to what you were talking about the iPad Pro being like such a crazy device. Like, it's weird because at this point, I feel like it's the highest end, like, technology-wise device that they make, right? Like, no other computer has a mini LED display.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
It has Thunderbolt, which is like, that was a pretty big deal that they've added Thunderbolt in it, and so. Yeah, I was worried at some point, like maybe the iPad Pro wasn't quite working out, and their whole, they're trying to sell this being a desktop replacement, but it seems like they're doubling down on that. And if anything, the latest one is getting like a lot closer, right? Like the fact that I think so you can hook up a 5K external display now, and because with Thunderbolt, like, and I think I don't know if they're going to change something so it actually acts like like a separate display, but it seems like they are. So yeah, definitely. Pretty crazy kind of jump, I think, with iPad Pro. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing of the whole event, to me at least, new iMacs. So I don't know what your thoughts are on this. Again, I knew something was coming with iMacs, but I think it was a bit surprising. I think like there's some elements of what they added, not the fact that they released an M1 iMac, but a lot of other things that were just like very unexpected. Like I was not expecting some of these things. I don't know how you felt about the iMac.
I think like here's my thoughts. My thoughts have always been about the iMac. Like the iMac is a computer that I always wish I had. Yeah. Like it's unfortunate because like again with work and lifestyle, it's like I can't justify my main computer being a desktop. It's just like a laptop hooked up to a monitor, keyboard, and mouse is just such way more versatile. Like I don't want to deal with there's some like even with cloud storage and everything like that. I can't deal with half my stuff is on the iMac and whatever. But the iMacs have always been like so nice, very affordable. Just like amazing. Like I miss like a lot of times these days at home, working at home, I set up my computer like I put up my laptop to the side like I have a desktop and I love it. I love just kind of sitting down at my like desktop basically. And these new ones are like incredible. Like they look so nice. Yeah. And there's just so much going on in them, right? They're just like, like
you're totally right about, like, I feel that I don't think you're alone in kind of, especially with the number of other devices that, it's probably very likely that, someone buying an iMac probably has a lot of other Apple devices, right? Like I don't think there's a lot of people there that the iMac is the only Apple device, that you're getting. And I think they're really leaning into that, right? They're like the old iMac, the previous iMac again was a aesthetically great device, and you'd almost want to have it, out somewhere, right? That's very visible and accessible. But I feel like they've leaned even more into that, right? Like the power cable, right, being like braided and magnetic. Like
so cool.
you don't do that.
Color matched.
Yeah, like you don't do that unless you know it's going to be out somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And you want that to be part of the design and not just kind of an afterthought. Yeah, like I think, again, same thing. Like I treat the iMac very similar to, like, in some ways, like an iPad, right? Like it serves a purpose. It's a lot of it is not necessarily functional, right? And I think it is a great, for people that are buying this as their main computer, I think it's probably a great, device. But
totally.
I feel like they're really leaning into the fact that it might be kind of like, you might have a laptop as well, right? Or it might just be a shared computer you have in your house or something. But yeah, I mean, obviously the design, like, the fact that, the thing that blew me away was, I don't know if you caught they showed a diagram of like how much of the inside is actually the CPU and cooling system.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because, it's this 24-inch display or whatever. And it's literally like the bottom part of it. The bottom, like 10-20% is where the computer is. So I really want to see it in person. It seems like ridiculously thin. And yeah, like just, again, I'm very surprised nowadays when there's stuff that gets, Apple puts out there that I didn't see coming, right? Because it's hard nowadays, right? Everything seems like, that's expected, or I heard about it. But the power adapter having an Ethernet port, right? Like that.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is crazy. This just seems like they didn't have to do that. No, I would not expect that, right? But it's really cool. I feel like they really kind of leveled up, what the iMac was, right? And it looks better. It's more functional. I'm sure with the M1, it's going to be, the performance is going to be great. But really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, the funny thing with the iMac, it's always been like this thing where I remember when I first saw like almost like IBM's version of the iMac, like growing up as a kid. Like there's this like kind of mini desk computer or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's weird that we get surprised by it, because ultimately what they've crammed into an iMac is not really different from what they've crammed into a MacBook Pro, right? Like,
totally,
if they can fit it in that kind of form factor, of course they could fit it in a 24-inch screen or whatever, right? It's a wonder why it hasn't been that thin before. Like this thing is thicker than a MacBook Pro for sure. But so a couple of things. So what I absolutely love. So by the way, you're totally right about that Ethernet cable thing, because that feels like something that like a nice piece of furniture in a really modern art like furniture store would have. Like this weird couch where like the leg is in a weird place or whatever, but it's very functional, but it's like super not normal, right? That's what it feels like, right?
Yeah.
But one thing I find super like almost pretentious, not pretentious, like it's a little bit like, oh yeah, you've got an iMac when, is like how they removed the Apple logo from the front. Right? Like there used to be that Apple logo on the chin, and I love that. I can't wait till the iPhone has no Apple logo on it. Like it's just because they got down now.
You know what it
logo,
is.
Right? Yeah, exactly. They're just so good. If you think about like an Eames chair or something like that, right? Like there's no Eames logo on it, right? Or any of these fancy brands. Like Burberry. Not Burberry. There's some what's the brand I'm thinking of? Gucci. Is it Gucci? I can't remember. Like there's some fancy brand that like their signature is like a green and then a red and then a like stripe or whatever. I think it's like Gucci or whatever. Super luxury brand, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't have they do have stuff that's like massive Gucci or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I love that like the app, because the Apple, that iMac is like so like now at this point at least like no other computer looks like it. You don't need that Apple logo on it. Now granted there's a massive Apple logo on the back, but like it's such a gorgeous computer. It's kind of interesting that they only offer some of the colors in the higher end configuration.
There's again there are options. Like I think maybe the one criticism here is this is like a first like it's not a brand new product, right? But a big generational update. And there's maybe too many options, right? Like I was very surprised. Like it's like 7 colors, I think, or something like that. But then you're right. Not all the colors are at like the entry level price point. So that's confusing. But I'm sure they have good reason for that. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think I'm the same as you. I'm like, and I've tried to, like, literally after I saw it, I'm like trying to come up with reasons, or like, like, oh, like one, where could this go? And then two, like what would be a good use of it, right? But yeah, I mean, again, like it's a great computer, and if anything, I think the last year and the fact that, for the foreseeable future, I'm gonna be doing a lot more work at home. I actually think, a device like that actually makes a lot of sense now, right? More so than it did before. But it's hard. Like, I don't think, if it comes down to those choices of like, would I use that versus a laptop, then it gets really difficult, right? I think it's much easier, crazy enough, to say it's a companion device in your life, right? Which is kind of crazy, right? But yeah, so that's like, well, yeah.
I mean, this is the problem, right? Like, as good as syncing and cloud and all that stuff goes, it's never quite good enough, right? Like I for a while, I got my old 2008 Mac Pro set up, and I was using it, and then every time I switch computers, like, oh right, I forgot to download that latest commit of the code or this and that or whatever, right? It's never the same as literally the computer you were actually working on is what you took home with you and you went to work. It's like, it's never that good, right?
I think that is getting better and better over time, primarily because everything's moving to the cloud, right?
Yeah.
And so I actually think the biggest thing is because, so many of the things I use are just online, right?
Yeah.
That like what's locally on my computer is very little now, right? Like it's becoming that there's very little, but there is still some, right? Like I don't think we're completely moved away from that. The keyboard, or actually keyboards that they release, also very cool. I was actually going to say, like, one actual benefit of Touch ID. So this is kind of crazy. Like they haven't done this before, I don't think, right? Like they have this new wireless Apple keyboard with a Touch ID sensor built in, which is kind of crazy because I think that means like there's a lot going on in this keyboard, right? Because it's wireless. I'm sure they have to put some sort of like chipset inside to handle the Touch ID, but that was really cool, right? And they offer different versions, but like things like the one thing, especially if you have more than one person using this computer, that actually makes it really attractive, right? As like a kind of shared device, because Touch ID makes it very easy to switch between users, right? I think really cool. You don't even have to. I think it just detects your finger and it just logs you into that.
And it automatically switches. Yeah, it's really cool.
So it's getting a lot better in terms of, like everything's in the cloud and, multi-users. But yeah, it's still in that kind of iPad category of like, I don't think it's a necessity. Like it's a luxury device, I think, for a lot of people.
Well, it's a shame
they're leaning into that, I think so.
It's a shame too, because like it's quite cheap for what you get. It's like an amazing computer for what you get.
Yeah.
It's just that the problem is the fact that really good laptops are on the market, right? The fact that the MacBook Air and the M1
it's still more than a M1 MacBook, right? So
yeah, exactly, right. And that's the unfortunate thing. And it's kind of weird about the Touch ID too, because I find it weird a little bit their strategy with Face ID and Touch ID. Yeah. Like it seems like they were like, when Face ID was announced, it's like, no, we're doubling down on Face ID. We're not going to do these under screen fingerprints or whatever. Face ID is the way of the future. And then it seems like they're like you remember the iPad that came out like last year or whatever, like the recent iPad Air.
Yeah.
And instead of Face ID, it had Touch ID on the button.
Right. Yeah.
And so they did a brand new kind of Touch ID implementation, and now they have Touch ID wireless on the keyboards, where you'd think it would be very easy. Well, not very easy.
Yeah, out of all devices, like an iMac is like the ideal Face ID device, right? Yeah.
You don't even need a notch, right? Like that's what's so amazing about the iPad Pro, right? Like there's no notch, but you have awesome Face ID, right? So it's kind of weird. This kind of like it seems like they're not quite settled on which one they want, right?
Yeah, I'm really. I mean, I think there's like, it's good that they're maybe not sticking to something if they realize maybe like Touch ID does work better in certain cases. But yeah, I wonder why. I really wonder why that's. Why they went that direction. Unless it's just really hard to do. Maybe Face ID is like, not cheap to do, right? And so So I think that's it. Was there anything else from the event that kind of caught your UI. I think that was pretty much.
I mean, just kind of. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like one of these classic things where like Apple holds out so long on doing something, and finally when they decide to do it, it's like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
It is interesting that the iMac finally does have a 1080p camera, front facing.
Yeah.
But the whole. Actually, it wasn't on the iMac, right? Was it on the iPad Pro that had center stage?
That's right. Yeah.
So
there was a bunch of
cool.
like front-facing video improvements. iMac had, upgraded for the first time 1080p, and then center stage was pretty cool on iPad Pro.
Yeah, and then the last thing I was a little bit irked of, because I don't think it's quite what I think it is. They're starting to use the spatial audio term now, not just for what we consider spatial audio, because the iMac has spatial audio, but I don't think it's like simulating like you turning your head and all this stuff, right? I think it's literally just like Dolby Atmos,
like surround.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder. Yeah, it seems like they're kind of using that term more broadly.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's cool to see them acknowledge. Basically, it feels a little late, right? But I think the thing that I guess like I realized the other day was like you and I, like again, like I upgraded, video and audio stuff pretty early on, right? Yeah. Like as soon as I started working from home. But to be honest, I feel like we're still in the minority, I think, right? Like I think most people like still, are still using whatever, phone and cameras and stuff. And so like it feels late, but the fact that they seem to be really leaning into improving the audio video experience when you're, on a video call or something. It's good to see, right? Because I think it's been a long time coming, but it's it was really interesting. The kind of again, like it seems like they're really relying on some of the smarts now, right? And so like 1080p camera is not like 4K is pretty standard now in a lot of webcams, but they're really leaning into like the fact that they can like image process it, right?
Exactly.
Same thing with the iMac, like pretty impressive audio and like mic array. So I don't know how well that's going to work, but they're claiming that you can have like a noisy room and the mic will only pick up your voice, right? And so again, I don't think they would have done that unless a pandemic hit, right? Where a lot more people are using it for that purpose. But I think stuff like it'll be interesting to see how well that stuff actually works. But good to see them kind of invest in it.
I'm kind of speaking of spatial audio, though. I am kind of disappointed that they didn't put some kind of U1 chip in the Apple TV. Because I know, like, the more I think about it, I think there are some complications with that because your Apple TV isn't necessarily where your TV is, right? So, like, the position of the U1, like they probably have to do something where you have to be like, oh, tell us that the TV is here.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas.
Yeah, but I want them to figure that out because I would love to watch.
I know.
A TV the way I watch the iPad. Right? It's just it's so like such an amazing experience.
Yeah, our good friend Dylan, what are you bringing up? Had his first spatial audio experience. Again, like this is, I don't know what's going on with because with how they're doing spatial audio because it's really hard to find mostly from what do I watch to experience it, right? And like there's nothing that tells you, right? And a lot of times I'm surprised. Again, like when I was watching something on Disney Plus, right? I didn't even know that they added it, right? Until I was like, why are my AirPods not working? Why is the sound coming out of my iPad? It's like, no, it's just spatial audio, right? Which is how crazy it is, right? Like, and so like it's crazy because again, our good friend Dylan, I would say tech savvy, he knows technology and how to use things. Basically didn't know how to test this out, right? So I had to basically say open up Apple TV Plus, watch this specific thing, right? But then as soon as he did, blown away, right? Like same experience, so basically crazy. like why does it sound like I don't have AirPods on, right? Like
it's such a shocking, like it's that thing of disbelief that it makes you question like how your body works, like how do my eardrums work and why can they be fooled
and how easily they're tricked.
Exactly. Right. It's just it's mind-blowing, right? You're like, it's one of those experiences where like this can't be real, like this doesn't make sense, right? So
But you're right. Like that would be such a huge win. And like, again, it's like, I feel like there's such a, and again, maybe a year from now, they're probably going to announce this, right? Like it seems like it's going to be an obvious thing, but an Apple TV connected to some AirPods with spatial audio, that's probably better than 99% of like people's sound systems, right?
No, totally.
And the fact that you could have, let's say 2 at least, right? AirPods connected, that's really neat. That opens up a lot of possibilities from, like what if you just want to watch something and it's like, it's late at night or something. You don't want to, turn up the volume or you don't have a huge surround sound system, right? Like if you have an Apple TV, 2 pairs of AirPods, and it's very likely that, like right now it's only available on the Pro and the Max, right? But it's very likely that the next gen entry level AirPods might have it, right? Yep. So now you have like a really crazy audio experience for not a lot of money, right?
Well, not to mention like, I'm sure calibration of spatial audio in your ears and AirPods is way easier to do than say like calibrate, because your room is a certain size and all that stuff like that or whatever, right? So if like anything purely on calibration, your sound is going to be incredible, right? Like it's just like, it's such a, here's the thing. I won't say it's underrated because everybody who's experienced it is like, oh my God, it's incredible. But it's such a under advertised and under talked about feature. Like it's so crazy how good it is.
Like you'd think they would put a like, like spatial audio supported or something like, or a little pop up to say spatial audio enabled, right? Like,
because it's
but
so
no, there's
incredible.
Nothing. It's really interesting.
Anyways,
so
that
was Apple event. I think we pretty much covered everything. I feel our discussion was as long as the event.
You know what's funny is that like normally, like I treat us, even though we're an ETC podcast, that like we don't really do the in-depth reviews or coverage. It's more like we'll kind of pick something and kind of give our angle on it or whatever. We'll kind of completely gloss over major announcements because that we're not delivering news. We're just kind of commenting on the news. And if that, and I feel like this is the first time we've actually kind of done like a kind of in-depth like review or recap of the event. So all right. So that's it. We are coming to a close on this season 7 of the ETC podcast, episode 66 for this wonderful Thursday, April 22nd, 2021. That is right. We are taking a hiatus. As always, it's an unknown hiatus. We will try to keep it below 8 years. 8 years was the longest hiatus, and I don't think we'll ever do that again. But we have no plans right now. We're going to see how things go. See a couple months from now, we'll see how things go. I feel like the thing about the ETC podcast is I never want it to really become a burden. It's something that I enjoy. I like. There are very few things. I shouldn't say there are very few things. There's actually a lot of things now because I've refocused my life. Because I've refocused my life into doing just things I enjoy versus doing things for business or employment gain or whatever. ETC is one of them, and I don't want it to ever be like, oh, we need to get back to it because we gotta like grow our audience or whatever. No, none of that.
But I think like this season when we started, I think it was actually this is selfishly an opportunity for us just to like catch up on things, right? In a conversation.
No, totally.
And so, I feel like, this is being successful this season because of that, right? That, very enjoyable for myself to be able to just, chat about this stuff, for an hour. And yeah, I mean, this was first time we did kind of, that sort of like special episode that someone suggested. And so maybe, I don't know when we're going to be back, but if you have suggestions, for us to try out stuff, we can line up some ideas for season 8 and who knows what's going to happen, right? Like maybe we'll take some of those ideas, maybe we'll come back with some new segments. I don't know what the new kind of, segments that we'll add on to our existing ones are going to be, but if you have ideas, let us know.
Definitely. And, as much as me and Aaron talk about, doing this for ourselves and enjoying it, we do heavily want to thank the people who actually do listen. Like we do have a small audience, but a very dedicated audience. It's one of the few things that I think me and Aaron do a lot of projects, and Aaron does a lot of stuff himself, and I do a lot of my things myself. And there's very few things that actually kind of catch on that people regularly enjoy and listen to and stuff like that. And ETC Podcast is definitely one of those. Like I said, we have a small audience, but you guys are all dedicated listeners, and you write in and you keep us engaged. And as much as we do this for ourselves, you guys being part of it and listening for sure motivates us, and definitely kind of pushes us to kind of do bigger and better things. So big thanks to the audience, big thanks to the regular listeners, the people who write and do your thing, the people who give us special suggestions, all this stuff, people who leave voice messages, emails, YouTube comments, all that stuff is very, very much appreciated. So
definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so that is it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, be sure to email us at podcast.etc@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at the ETC Podcast. The ETC Podcast is currently hosted on Anchor.fm, but distributed to all your favorite podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts with subscriptions coming soon, Spotify with subscriptions maybe in place already, and not Stitcher. We're not on Stitcher, actually, but we're on other podcast platforms. You can also find our YouTube channel. If you just search the ETC Podcast with Aaron Sedanker or Casey Lee, you'll find us. You'll find our glorious faces on there, where you can watch us all day long and see our hair grow and our mustaches grow. And, you can see me yawn because I get tired these days. You can see it all in not in the raw, but in the...
Thankfully, it's not in HD. Thankfully, or 4K. Thankfully, it's not in 4K.
Yeah, it's amazing how much low quality covers up a lot of not only human imperfections, but technical imperfections of lag and synchronization and all this stuff. If you haven't yet figured it out, go back to episode, I can't remember what it is now, 62 or 61. There's a hidden puzzle in there that nobody has solved yet, actually.
Oh, that's right.
Break. So yeah, definitely try to solve that mystery. Yeah, but anyways, it's been an awesome season, guys. Season 7 of the ETC Podcast. What I love about our return is that we're doing a very consistent season. I think we did about 12 or 13 episodes this season, which has been an awesome run. But thanks everybody for listening. I don't think I really have anything else to say. Just keep an eye on our Twitter feed, and we'll announce when we're back. But as for now, that is it for this episode 66, Thursday, April 22nd, 2021 of the ETC Podcast. My name is Casey Lee, and sitting across the city from me, as always, is
Aaron Seneca.
We'll see you in the next season.
Couch Cave. So good.